Hi guys, I'm so glad you could join me today. It's a little bit of a gloomy day here in Maryland in USA, but I'm gonna just try to dodge the raindrops and do a repotting video. And this is an exciting one because it's a plant that I never thought I could grow, and now it's outgrown its terrarium. So we're gonna plant it, we're gonna bump it up a size. This is the Plumosa in the pickle jar. It has done so well in this jar, it needs a bigger space. Now, these are pickle jars that I saved a couple years ago. We were buying pickles in bulk and I thought they were wonderful jars for terrariums. So I have an even bigger one. Unfortunately, it's not a lot taller. But my plan is, it's certainly wider, give more space to grow sideways. But my plan is to either root prune or maybe spread some of the roots flatter and use less gravel at the bottom. Maybe I can half the gravel that I had. So let me show you my materials. I have the larger jar. I have a couple different size spoons from my kitchen to work with so I can get down into the terrarium. You guys probably use things from your kitchen too. Please let me know if you do. When I'm acting crazy, I like company. And I also have from my kitchen some bowls filled with new potting mix. This is Miracle Grow potting mix. I have pea gravel that I'm going to put on the bottom. And I have scissors in case I do have the opportunity to do any trimming or root pruning. And then this is a very important ingredient. I use this inside with my terrariums. And I believe I got this off Amazon, but it is nice to support your local aquarium shop. But you can get it at the aquarium shop in a large size. But what it is premium activated carbon. But this layer in here is going to help that whole water cycle purify a little bit as it evaporates and then rains down on the plant, or just water particles are in the air. This is really the thing that keeps that water fresh. And they actually have you change the carbon in your aquariums once a month. But this has probably been in here about 2 years. I didn't look up the exact date, but I'm pretty sure I did this setup year before last. You don't need to water a terrarium. If you see it looking too if it appears to have a lot of moisture, you can always open it for a day or two and let some of that water evaporate. But this one has been taking care of itself literally since the day I set it up. I've never added more water and I haven't fertilized. And look how well it's done. So I guess the secret to ferns, and this is a Plumosa fern, is that humid environment. And then in the soil, I'm going to add a little bit of plant tone. The soil itself is fresh, so it will have a little bit of fertilizer. And ideally, you don't want a terrarium plant to grow a lot, but at the same time, I don't want to deprive it of nutrients. So I'll just put a little bit of extra nutrient into my soil layer, and we'll see how it appreciates it. And then the last thing I have is a really pretty rock. And I think this was just in a bag of river rocks I had, but it has these pretty lines in it. I'm going to be using this coffee filter. We'll see how this works. What I'm trying to do is when I put in my layers, aim it towards the middle, and then I can go in and neatly spread it around. So we'll see if that works. I may need a funnel or something stiffer, but this is how I'm going to try it. And that should, in theory, keep the soil and carbon granules off the side of the container. But you can always, as long as the mouth of the container is big enough, you can always go in and wipe off the sides if you do create a mess when you're planting it. So the last thing I want to talk about before we get busy with this project is make sure you're starting with a clean vessel. You know, this is going to be a closed environment, and the last thing you want to do is have any bacteria in there that's going to kill the plant. So you want to make sure that you've washed your vessel well, and in this case I used really hot water and some antibacterial soap. I think it was Dawn. But this is clean and we're all ready to start. So the first thing we need to do is take the Plumosa out of its first pickle jar, and we'll see what its roots look like. It actually has some very nice roots. I think you can see that white root in front. So it seems to be rooted out well in here. But let's go ahead and take it out, look at the root system, see if there's anything we can trim. Once that's out, we'll start assembling it in the new container. And lucky me, this pretty top, even though the container is not taller, it's the same, the mouth is the same width. So I can use this beautiful top and put it on the larger jar. And I'm going to save this and possibly put a new little humidity loving plant in it, because this was a fantastic success. It's always so thrilling when you do something right with a plant. So let's get busy. Let me show you what it looks like when I open it. It certainly does need more space. And if I plant it deeper, it might have a little bit more headroom. Alright, so we'll remove the mossy rock. As you can see, it grew some moss of its own. Let's see what it looks like underneath. And of course you don't want it to get so big that you can't even get it out. I'm just going around the edges and loosening the soil. And I may even use the other end of the spoon. So I don't do a lot of terrariums, but I always think it's so much fun when you do have the opportunity to do one. So I'm getting a lot of resistance. I'm feeling like there's a lot of roots in here. This plant has done really well. So I'm going to go around the side and really just loosen it up. So I've loosened it up. Let me see if I can take it out with my hand. Okay, so it is a very healthy root system. Look how pretty that is. I mean, it really looks like a Dr. Seuss tree. So I'm going to put that aside and compost that old soil. But look guys, there's lots of roots here, and it's almost a topiary form. But there's lots of little stems in here, and I'm just kind of shaking it so that some of the soil comes off. You know, when you're transplanting, a lot of people will take all the soil off the roots, but it's more of a shock if they don't have a little bit of soil, because they're used to the bacteria culture in this soil. So to introduce a little bit of that, as long as you don't have a bug issue or anything like that, is probably beneficial. I think I'm going to take off these extra little roots that we're circling. And sometimes when you root prune, it elicits a reaction where they put out more roots. So we have a little bit of soil here, and we have successfully done it. Maybe I could fluff it up a bit. It's quite thick here. Look at it, guys. I mean, it's just otherworldly. It's really a fabulous little plant, and I'm so happy that it's liked its setup. So let me put that aside for now, and we'll get started on setting up the big one. And what I can do so that I can plant it lower and get more headroom for it is spread these roots out flat, and then I can really plant it way down in there and give it a little bit more space to grow upwards. So let me gently put that aside, and we're going to go ahead and start by adding the pea gravel layer. I think I'll do this with a spoon. And my coffee filter funnel is working just fine. It's keeping my additions to the center of the container. And I just want a little bit at the bottom just to create some drainage. I forgot to explain why you do gravel. First of all, it looks nice, but most importantly, it does create a space for drainage. If there's extra water, it can go down there and it won't sit in the soil that's around the plant roots and possibly create root rot. I think we're almost with enough gravel. Just add one more. I may be getting a little too deep. And I'm just going to go in and flatten each layer as I add it. And try to keep the sides neat, but it won't be the end of the world if the sides need to be neatened up all the way at the end. Now it's time to add the premium activated carbon. And I'm just going to put a circle of coffee filter. We're using coffee filters today in 2 different ways. But I'm just going to put that between the carbon and the pea gravel. And I cut a circle that's not quite as big as the pea gravel. I don't know if you can see it in there, but it won't show from the side of the vessel. It'll just serve as keeping those 2 things as a layer, because that could really seep down into the gravel and maybe discolor it. So I'm just putting a generous layer here. I think, as you've noticed, I've put about three small handfuls. And it did get into the gravel, but that's okay. The soil's going to cover it. Okay, so the next stage is the soil, and I've added about a teaspoon of biotone fertilizer. And that's just going to help the plant have some nutrients to eat, just like the rainforest floor might have. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that soil in and create a planting area for my little Plumosa. So I think that's probably enough for a small plant. I feel like that's a generous portion, actually. So I am going to push it up against the side just for now, just at the bottom. And I'm going to put this in and spread out the roots. And it looks like I'm going to have to go much further down. That does give it a little bit more headspace. Not much. I really do wish I had a taller container. But this will be good for another year. And you can always get in there and do a little pruning on it. Oh, I may have given it a little more headroom there. I think it's a little bit better. But it certainly does have space to spread out from side to side. Much better. And I'm pressing it all down. I don't want any air pockets. I want moist, nice moist roots in there. The other thing, if you end up getting soil on the side, you can always pour water so that it's going down the side, and that'll rinse away any of the soil you've put in there. And I'm going to go in with my fingers and just kind of open up this canopy. It grows like a little tree, so I'm kind of opening it up and spreading it out and encouraging it to go a little more sideways rather than up. And actually, I think that's worked pretty well. But this is very exciting, guys. I'm not going to add any more soil because I do want to add some rocks, and I don't want my plant to get dirty. It's all about keeping the jar looking neat and not getting the plant dirty. So we've got one nice boulder, and in this application it looks like a boulder, and then we'll bring in our second boulder here. So I'm just creating a little forest look. And I'm just going to turn it to the prettiest side. This is going to be a long video, but I hope you're enjoying seeing the process. And I think once I add some water, we're going to be all set. Okay, so the last part of the terrarium setup would be to add a little water. And I do like to gather rainwater for plants, but in this case, once again, I don't know what bacteria might be in rainwater. So I just got a little bit of tap water, and we don't want it soggy. We just want this plant watered in the center, and maybe to have a little water run down the sides to clean any dirt that might have been on there. So I'm just pretty much moistening that soil. And I'm using my hands to let that go down the side. Just running it down, directing it to the sides. And this is just something you have to play with. There's no way to really explain it. There's a tiny bit of dirt here, so I'm just going to run it down the sides. And again, You do not want too much water in there overall. So I think I've added enough. But look, guys, it looks fantastic. And this water will cycle through. It will evaporate when the vessel is in the sun. It'll evaporate into the air in there. Then it will fall back down into the soil, and it'll be a cyclical water cycle. And it will get clean through the carbon. And one other thing that I will do is to wash this cap as well. This was from the old terrarium, but I'll give this a good wash once I take it inside. And I want to give you a close look at how that came out. I'm thrilled. It has probably a good inch all the way around it. I centered it in the middle. And it has an extra new boulder. And it has some really nice new soil. And it has about 1.5 inches at the top. And it was growing out of the top when I opened it. So I have given it a little bit more headroom. Certainly a lot more room around, and I'm thrilled. Hopefully next year or the year after I'll be getting an even larger terrarium.